Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, St. Lucia and in the diaspora. Once again, it is simply great to be here with you. As always, there is so much to say, not only the maliciousness of the opposition, but also the good work that the government is doing to make life for our people much better than it was between 2016 and 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, we must do what we can and what we have to do in order to bring back some semblance of sanity to the country. There is no doubt in my mind that law and order is pivotal in securing a decent future for generations to come. This is essential because without it, we will have a lawless society where only chaos and violence will prevail. Respect for one another will simply not exist. Therefore, I say to parents quite categorically that you have a responsibility in bringing up your children to respect law and order. More so, those law officials like policemen, women who are employed to do so. These men and women are in a sense protecting our lives, property, and society on the whole. And while doing so, are without a doubt sometimes putting their own lives at risk right there on the spot. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you have to embed and inculcate into your children's mind and grandchildren that law officers do put their lives on the line to make the country safe, especially from the gang violence that has now become prevalent, not only in St. Lucia, but nearly all over the world. The present United Records of the Poor leaders try to make it look as if this government is the one that have encouraged crime, not forgetting under whose government that Operation Restore Confidence came into being. And without a doubt, it was necessary then. And I say so openly. And it is necessary now. In the present world society that now exists, we are not dealing with fistfights, but with guns. Violence unseen and unheard of, even to an extent kidnapping and being placed with pigs. Further to that, we see drug trafficking on a high scale. The drug gangs, parents, you should do everything in your power to make sure that your young man is not misled into this way of life. It is no good that when they are gunned down, that you come on television and say, he was a good boy. If he was, the question is, why was he so brutally shot and killed? It is without a doubt too late to save his life, a precious life. There is a proverb which says quite succinctly and clearly that prevention is better than cure. Therefore, these young men should look before they leap. So should some parents who knows what their sons are up to. I believe sincerely that another form of Operation Restore Confidence should be brought back to save this country from the savage thinking elements in our midst. I also do say that hanging or a form of execution should be brought back because of the useless killings that are taking place in our beloved St. Lucia. We owe it to the generations to come to put things in place that will give them a decent country to live in. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not about us. It's about those to come. Many of you at a certain age know the sacrifices our parents made to make life better for us. Let us do the same for those to come because we owe them that. They didn't ask to come into the world, we brought them into the world. I also want to remind policemen and women that you have a very important job to do, and therefore you have to take it seriously because at times I'm somewhat perplexed as to whether you are truly about protecting the citizens of this country. Why do I ask this question? Is because of your lackadaisical approach, an attitude which gives the impression that you are just thinking about yourself and not realizing the nature of the job that you are entrusted to. Not only that, but the extent of how many spare jobs you can get, or the use of police vehicles for your own purposes. And I'm even told police motorcycles are used in the process. Comrades, I ask of you not to allow Satan and all its works and pumps to enter your mind in any way. Do what is right for the country as a whole. Without a doubt, this government, more so the Prime Minister, is doing everything in his power to give you the necessary equipment you need to effectively do your job of law and order. We are beginning to see CCTV cameras being placed in certain areas of the country. That is a tremendous beginning, because this Prime Minister, who believes in law and order, is doing so. His father devoted his life to make St. Lucia safe as a policeman, and he is following in those footsteps in a humble manner. View Fort at present has video cameras in strategic positions. Very soon, without a doubt, the whole country will have those CCTV cameras. However, I say to you, the government, that recruitment of new police officers must now become even more stringent than ever before. The force cannot accept applicants who see policing as a job because there are no other jobs they feel that they're suitable to. They are without a doubt. There's without a doubt some damn good policemen and women in the force. However, in every organization we do have a few bad apples, but we have to make sure that with a stringent employment process, we can cut out a lot of those bad apples, especially where law and order is concerned. We owe it to the people and society to have a highly reputable police force. Not only that, but police officers should have refresher training every year to instill in them that they are officers of the law. I also do believe that we must have a high caliber of police training academy. This is essential in my view in order to have that psychological effect on recruits. What we have at present is simply a joke. I've had the pleasure of going there to train officers during Mr. Alexander's stint as the officer in charge of training. So I'm speaking as one who knows. I was also involved in training all the high echelons of the police force at one time in management, supervisory management. Even our ex-UWP Minister of Home Affairs and his colleagues did that course with me. I am of the firm belief that having a few more policemen on the roads will go a long way in helping in solving and the prevention of crime. However, I'm told by some in the force that the seriousness that this deserves is taken lightly, and vehicles are used for their own convenience. That has to stop forthwith. And those found to be guilty of such indiscipline should face disciplinary action immediately and should be kicked out of the force forthwith. No decent democratic country should entertain that behavior, as it is without a doubt a form of corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, I intend not to pull back any punches. Tonight I have no intention of pulling back into saying what has to be said, because truth, in my view, is always on the throne. There is a view by some that our public service has slowly become one of the worst places to work in, more so when it deals with real work. That cannot be so, because they are essential services. I believe also that permanent secretaries should be moved every 3 years so that it brings an all-round experience to them. Some have been in place for too long. in certain ministries, such as commerce, tourism, and one or two others. We must also have dedicated permanent secretaries, as we are seeing in infrastructure at present. They are moving with a pace that is, in my view, commendable. And the minister now seems more relaxed and is satisfied that his plans and that of cabinet and government is going well. He's extremely happy that the plan that he put in place, or that exists, is going on like clockwork. Unlike the period of the last government when planning seems to be on a day-to-day basis. What was being witnessed was that lots of money being spent with nothing to show for it. Many in the public service seem to think that they have some particular rights because they have a piece of paper that gives them the right to promotion as often as possible. Yet they are without a doubt a bunch of lazy individuals who simply cannot perform efficiently and effectively. They seem to have no respect for their jobs and the people and the services that they give. There certainly must be a clean out as far as I'm concerned. How, oh how, in heaven's name, can a permanent secretary be suddenly brought in from being a consultant? That was not done under the last government. That was done under the last government, and without a doubt, it is simply wrong because this is not a private industry, but a public service. Let me be blunt, that without a doubt, there are some good and industrious workers there who are excellent at their jobs. But it is sad to say that they are not the ones who usually get promoted. In truth and in fact, they are passed over because they are too good at their jobs and therefore will make those above them look inefficient and ineffective. They should be seen as an asset, but invariably they are seen as a threat. Therefore, conflict will always arise. It is the same in the police force. What seems prevalent is that the majority of workers do let down their guard when it suits them. Absenteeism seems now to be the order of the day. Dissatisfied workers who have simply been abused, overlooked, and cast into the dustbins because of mediocre management. The public service, in my view, has to have a complete retraining program for all their staff. And the Riot Act should be read aloud to them. The union, without a doubt, should be on board. I believe sincerely that those who are not capable should be shown the door immediately. We need an efficient public service if we are to become a really developed country. Some may say, who is he to come and preach to us about industrialization? Well, I tell you this, that my first degree is in social sciences, and one of the 4 modules was industrial relations. Not only that, I have a diploma in labor studies and industrial relations. My life in the UK forced me to get these qualifications because of the way black workers were being treated. I also possess a master's in conflict resolution, mediation, and arbitration from London University. I believe, for example, that in Slasper, it is alleged that there are some who seem to be bringing in their politics into the workplace. More so, as we are hearing, that this government is not of their choosing. That has to stop forthwith because it is a job of work that must be done competently, and it brings in revenue into the country. These are jobs that people cannot bring their personal diatribe into it. Those who feel that they are not happy then should do the honest thing to resign and go elsewhere. It is alleged that they are prepared to hold things back that simply cannot be allowed. I am bringing this to the fore because it is alleged that there are some shenanigans in dealing with, say, for example, the last jazz festival with musical equipment to the country. The efficiency in dealing with these issues, I was informed, was a sight to behold. I believe that this government must now change the laws appertaining to the discipline that must prevail when working in the public service, or that which is attached to it. It's important to have efficiency in all public services of work. This indiscipline that we are hearing about has gone on for too long, more so at this juncture of our lives. It is at this juncture I will take my first break and I'll be back. Welcome back to Moving Forward. Ladies and gentlemen, before continuing tonight, let us pray to the Heavenly Father. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Oh Father, we come to you to ask for your guidance in all we do and say. We ask you to guide our government and people on the right track. We have seen the evil minds among us because they seem to worship the devil and his evil ways and pomps. Oh Father, let them see that those evil ways, more so when they feel that they must stoop to the lowest level of propaganda in order to smear a decent government whom you have had a hand in bringing into power, is unacceptable. The present government, under the leadership of Philip Joseph Pierre, is working diligently without any fanfare because he's a humble individual and one with integrity, which is the hallmark of a good leader. Oh Father, you chose him to be our Prime Minister. Therefore, dear Father, do give him the help and strength he needs to overcome the evil that is being portrayed by the opposition day in and day out. There are those with warped minds calling for war in this pristine land of ours. I beg you, O Father, to do what is best to curb those evil minds that can think in that like manner. I put my faith and trust in you always, because without a doubt, I believe, again sincerely, that you are the Prince of Peace, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. Amen. Tonight I quote from Sirach chapters 19 and 20, verses 20 to 30 and 1 to 8. Fear the Lord and keep his law. That is what wisdom is all about. You may know everything there is to know about wickedness, but that does not make you wise. It is not sensible to follow the advice of sinners. It is possible to use cleverness for wicked purposes, as some do. But some people act like fools because they don't know any better. A devout person, even if he's not very intelligent, is better off than the cleverest of the sinners. It is possible to be marvelously clever and still be dishonest, or to get what you want by being absolutely polite. Then there are those wicked people who go about looking very solemn and mournful, but who are only trying to deceive you. They will turn their faces away and pretend not to hear you, but they will take advantage of you when you least expect it. If for some reason they are unable to sin now, they'll get around to it at the first opportunity. You can know a man by his appearance. The first time you look at him, you can tell if he has good sense. His character shows in the way he dresses, the way he laughs, and the way he walks. A person can be rebuked in the wrong way. It may be wiser to keep quiet than to speak, but it is much better to rebuke the person than to keep your anger bottled up. Admit when you are wrong, and you will avoid embarrassment. Using force to get a point across like a castrated man trying to rape a girl. Some people are thought to be wise because they don't talk much. Others are disliked because they talk too much. Some people keep quiet because they don't have anything to say. Others keep quiet because they know the right time to speak. A wise person will not speak until the right moment, but a bragging fool does not know when the time is right. No one can stand a person who talks too long and will not give others a chance to speak. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Tonight, listeners of this program, as you can see, that part of the Bible is dealing with everything this program is about, because it is about the way we go and communicate with each other, the way we deal with each other. Chirac was speaking such a long time ago. Remember that. Yet his words are relevant to us today. And it is as if he was speaking right here tonight. However, before I go into the thrust of this Moving Forward program, I want to share with you, my listeners, one of my favorite songs, because it has substance and meaning, just like Chirac's piece in the Bible. This is a song that has touched my heart dearly, and it goes like this. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest nights. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father, and I've known you as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. He's a good God. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I feel like crying because it is as though those beautiful words were written on my behalf. I'm sure that many of you think likewise. Ladies and gentlemen, if one listens to the words and also the power of the song by the singer, if we listen to the song every morning, then we will be strong, wise, and will not be fooled by any politician or anyone who thinks that they are clever. More so to think that some of us are mere morons, mendicants and jackasses, or the barking dogs, more so those who bray. The leader of the opposition again made the remark, let the jackasses bray, not too long ago. I want to say to him, or I must ask him, in all sincerity, whom are you talking to or about? Is it the lady who childishly says that the country belongs to you? Or you were so elated in the background, instead of being ashamed of yourself, you chuckled. This, in my view, is a nincompoop. More so in God's country. And does not belong to anyone but the one true God. Here is my question. Are you God? That is why you are called Tropical Trump. Because he thinks likewise that he is God. He's like God. The Jesus who came onto this earth, the Son of the One Most High. Because he thinks likewise. What a bunch of pathetic creatures you are. Here you have one who was involved in all sorts of misdemeanors when he was a minister. And I've been simply aghast that you don't even realize that at times you are sitting between two men who never wanted you as leader of the party in 2015. I spoke with one of them, and the other came to you via your father. When the person he fought so hard to lead the party lost to you. Yes, gentlemen, put that in your pipe and smoke it. With all the talk about alleged corruption that seems to be overflowing in the media, and the culprits who try to saturate the media with that idea simply have nothing on this present government. Therefore, they are throwing their bricks and words in the hope that some damage is done physically. And some words they hope will stick, because don't they believe sincerely that 43% of our people are mendicants, jackasses, and barking dogs? Therefore, some of their supporters who believe anything because of who they are purported to be that. The bricks and words they are now throwing has already struck them with some ferocity. And we are all waiting somewhat impatiently on the special prosecutor to come out with the facts as investigated. There's no doubt in my mind that the special prosecutor is investigating any corruption that took place between 2016 and 2021 in minute detail. The present Prime Minister made the statement on corruption when he said, the perception of corruption is even more dangerous than itself. In other words, than corruption. That is so true, because we are seeing this at present before our very eyes, because the opposition would like to make the country believe that it is this present government who are the corrupt ones. But we know better, because we are certainly not the mendicants they see around them in their party. Once again, one who had the audacity to say that St. Lucia, again I bring it out, belongs to Alan Chastanet. Strangely, the PR of the United Records of the Poor keeps asking the question here again, what is Hilaire hiding? But Hilaire never said or thinks that St. Lucia belongs to him. I say to them, he's hiding nothing. However, the question I ask is, what is Alan and his poodles are hiding, and his personal lawyer in terms of Galaxy, who got rid of him? Sometimes I feel so irritated by the individual they call the PR of the United Records of the Poor, who seem to have had no shame as a minister, wanting to fight openly with the owner of a bar in Marigot. Has he forgotten that? When one considers that he was beaten by a young man, a young person, who was going into politics for the first time, and yet he lambasted him from top to bottom. The question I'd like to ask him is why he got the worst political beating than anyone has ever had in the history of politics in St. Lucia. The answer is simply because he was useless and did very little for his constituency. He simply forgot that day in and day out, people were asking the same question when he was a minister. There's no doubt that he was, for me, the worst that they had come across, more so as the director of the Government Information Service between 2009 and 2012. I realized that this guy was one who could not be trusted even on timing for recordings, etc. He was without a doubt unreliable, and I have proof to that effect. He did not care about anyone but himself. What grieved me is that he always had a lame excuse why he couldn't turn up, why he was late, and it was loaded with lies. This individual was earning money for doing sweet nothing, as far as I'm concerned. I would simply like to ask him, as I've done before, where is the sport building he was putting in place at Grand Riviere playing fields? Because Initially, their work just stopped after work or so much money was spent. It is because he needed, is it because he needed the money for campaigning? I'm talking about the field next to a particular person in the media. That money was simply wasted. Just consider the amount of money that went into the construction, and simply nothing came out of it because it was left to ruin. It has disappeared now. Yet this is the guy who talks about alleged corruption. The present representative, the minister, is adorning the grounds with something to behold. And the work is going on at a relentless pace. I'm not trying to boost him up. What I'm interested in is the alleged story of money being taken from constituency funds to cover election expenses as far as the last election was concerned. Is that true or not? Or is it just hearsay or people just bringing things out deliberately? His leader called this government bluffers because they won the election on what they said. He even went on to say that they lied to get their way to government. If that is the case, show it. Honestly. All I can say is that I was taking part in the wrong election, if that is so. And maybe in the wrong country too. Because all I was aware of was that the government then was panicking when at the last minute, as I've mentioned before, in some constituencies that they thought was on the borderline, they brought in tents. St. Lucians, have you forgotten that? And voting took hours. However, what must have thrown them off guard was that the police voted some days before to over 96% for the unity government. And from what I was told, they were watching those tents like hawks with all the energy they had because of alleged malpractices that would be taking place. So they were alert to this. For Alan to be making that statement, it left me gobsmacked. He went on further to say that the present government or those elected have no integrity and don't know the truth or from a lie. Can you believe this? Can you really believe this? Yet he himself cannot differentiate truth from fiction. Again, when I hear such a remark from the individual, I'm so shocked that I have to pinch myself to make sure that I am in the real world. This guy is without a doubt a nightmare to our politics, and it is like a bad dream. So I've now come to the conclusion that there are two people who seem to live and speak with lies pouring out of their mouths like the feces that should be coming out of their backsides. And one of them is called Trump, and the other, Tropical Trump. So I'll take another break at this juncture. Welcome back to Moving Forward. And we're talking about Trump and Tropical Trump. And honestly, I'm simply aghast when these two open their mouths because of the glut of feces that comes out. And it literally stinks with a pungent smell all over. What also annoys me with Alden is that he continues says that he never made any such statement when he's confronted with what he says. And he seems to be forgetting that what he says is being recorded. Even I have, for myself, I have recorded at home, because it is important to have the facts instead of the fiction he portrays. Even in the House, he stands on a point of order to say to the Speaker, he never said that. When he has, and the recording is there to prove it. This individual, in my view, must leave our politics forthwith and retire gracefully to the country that he's a product of. I'm sure he will say that he never said that. For example, there are recordings that he said on an overseas program that $1.5 billion was coming into St. Lucia as investment. When challenged by his favorite friend on a program, he made it clear that he never said 1.5, but what he said was $1 billion. Again, when challenged by reporters outside the House, he made it categorically clear that he never said that. This guy simply forgets that everything in this modern era is recorded. If you can continually, blatantly lie like that, how in heaven's name can the public trust you ever again? For example, you are the champion of the poor now and dispossessed, when in power you were not. Alan, do you think St. Lucians will believe this when one of your spokesmen is saying that the country belongs to you? Now here he comes as champion of the poor people. The Minister for External Affairs, the Honorable Alva Baptiste, in the House, made the statement that this individual simply conveniently forget that his government, on coming into power, stopped the laptop program. They stopped the Castries to Grosjean Highway. They stopped the Soufrière Square project. They stopped the St. Jude Hospital reconstruction project. They stopped the PPP with the World Bank for the HIA redevelopment project. They shut down the abattoir. They paid $13.6 million for the DSH road. They spent $20 million for incinerators, $13 million for relocation to Gotlet. The list simply goes on. He went on to say that in their first half of the term in office, they accomplished nothing. During COVID, they got over $300 million from World Bank. Well, alleged. How much of that was given as income support, he asked, to the people of the country? There was no stimulus package for the people who were gasping for air, he says. And what made me laugh to my heart content is when he said, and all they were doing is sucking salt. I laugh again. Because that was so true. On another occasion, he said that the government's idea of helping, that's Alan, helping the poor, is subsidizing rice, flour, and sugar. And they say, we are helping poor people. Philip made it clear that history is coming back to haunt him. Technology is haunting him because everything he says, as I said before, is recorded. To the extent the Prime Minister made the remark, as far as the leader of the opposition is concerned, that parents who are having difficulty are seen as mendicants. In the House, we quickly heard a point of order. He says things on one side, call the poor mendicants. He never did. Then when it is brought to light, a point of order is made. And then Alan says quite conclusively that he was never once called, that he never called the poor as mendicants. Yet on the recording he made the point that there was a mendicant mentality that we must get out of. The Malawi syndrome, I suppose, a fundamental difference to what we are doing. Lately, as we know, he simply called for war, and he said quite categorically on one of his meetings that I promise you This government cannot stay in government. We tolerate anything if it is bad. We accept Shasley as that demeanor, that of a slave master. That's my belief. You will remember when he called Kenny a massa man. How can you make a statement when you were Prime Minister of St. Lucia? He simply does not have the interests of the people at heart because he is so disingenuous. Alan is speaking about Galaxy, and he said quite categorically that they have an amazing project in St. Kitts. That's recorded. I'm grateful that they're coming to St. Lucia, more so in Canals, where the Ramada project. Yet it is as though it was about labor now who brought them here. The question that seems to be on some people's mind is to find out who was the lawyer for Ojo Labs. That's a good question. Further to that, if it is what we think, we were told that there should be what one would term a conflict of interest. If what has been alleged is true, some are saying quite clear that there was a conflict of interest all around us during his stint, that's Alan's stint as Prime Minister. Once again, my question to Alan is, where is the country's $7.3 million that he virtually gave away for vaccines we never received? And some are alleging that he broke finance rules and regulations. Also the Constitution that he is now talking about to get that money. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm reliving all of this because I don't want you to forget what took place in this country during 2016 and 2021, because, as I've said before, we are quick to forget and must be reminded until the next election is called and we have to vote. I can assure voters that they will not have to go into tents to vote, because everything will be done in the normal way as has been done before, until what we saw at the last elections. Somewhere I read about the shamelessness of a liar extraordinaire. And in my view, it should now read liars extraordinaire, because the whole echelon of the United Records of the Poor, the higher echelon, have become convoluted with liars. It is at this juncture I now touch on the deliberate saga of the CIP. That is now the buzzword of the United Records of the Poor, more so the upper echelon of their management, because they want to draw themselves or withdraw themselves from the mess they concocted on their period in government between 2016 and 2021. Question is, who is that party approached Mr. Emmanuel to meet with Martinez, and why? This individual, as has been revealed, is close to Alan, and therefore, as alleged, devised the idea of the meeting after implicating Mr. Emmanuel as a co-defendant. That was a deliberate ploy. The answer is now clear for all to see. It borders, in my view, criminality. It is a clear case of empty vessels making the most sound to stain the Labour Party. They simply had nothing, and therefore they created a situation to see what they could bite from that. But nothing was forthcoming, as we will see, because there was nothing untowards happening. The idea was to make Minister Hilaire and Didacus to run to Martinez, and if possible the Prime Minister, with simply nothing but a story. If they had gone to the individual, would simply show that they had something to hide. That's what they wanted to bring out, that The government has something to hide. But that did not happen. They facilitated the meeting. And this to me was without a doubt a contract by those who knew perfectly well that at this juncture, I would like to allow Mr. Hilaire to speak on that matter. I know that you may have heard him, but it is nice to hear him again, and later you will hear my addendum to that. So here is Mr. Hilaire.
What Mr. Emmanuel did not say in his press statement is that he was approached by Mr. Mark Maraj, the lawyer for Alan Chastanet, who convinced him that he should meet with Mr. Martinez, and this would assist in having his name removed from the lawsuit. Mr. Emmanuel, being concerned that he was named in the lawsuit, went to have this meeting. Mr. Maraj facilitated the initial Zoom meeting and then arranged a meeting between Mr. Martinez and Mr. Emmanuel in Washington. Would you believe? Mr. Maraj also telephoned Mr. Thaddeus Antoine to suggest that he too should travel to Washington to meet Mr. Martinez and his lawyers to ensure his name would not be added to the filing. Mr. Antoine did not oblige. Mr. Maraj makes it very clear that they do not really want Mr. Antoine, Mr. Emmanuel, or Mr. Jeffrey Duboulet, but rather it's all about Ernest Hilaire.
Mr. Hilaire is making some remarks in order to clarify the position, which in essence is clear and concise, when he said that what Mr. Emmanuel did not say in his press statement is that he was approached by a particular person called Mark Maraj, the lawyer, we are told, for Alan Chastanet, who convinced him that he should meet with Mr. Martinez, and this will be to assist him having his name removed from the lawsuit. Mr. Emmanuel was concerned that his name was in that lawsuit. I would too. If that is the case, why in heaven's name did Mark approach Mr. Emmanuel? And why was Mr. Emmanuel in the first place put as the co-defendant? This was deliberate. And more, we begin to see realpolitik taking place, but somewhat very dirty by unscrupulous people. In listening to the minister, it seems that Mark Maraj facilitated, not only initiated the whole process, but is deeply involved in the CIP alleged corruption and the debacle that took place, because he was without a doubt the lawyer in theory, both for Alan and for Galaxy, until he was asked to go. Now the question we have to ask is why he was relieved of his duty. My suspicion on the whole charade was when Mr. Martinez gave the ex-Alan Chastanet a clean bill of health, and one have to ask why on the CIP. Did he know much about our CIP to give him a clean bill, give the government a clean bill of health? I'm sure that Mr. Emmanuel was literally shocked to see his name as a co-defendant. When he was not a minister, and he had a minister above him plus a prime minister. It was deliberate because they probably know that he had strong links, maybe to the Labour Party constituency. What was clear in those plotting is to implicate the ministers. And they came to the realization that if they could not, then the next best thing was to try to get Mr. Emmanuel and Mr. Thaddeus Antoine, because that's Thaddeus, is close to Minister Hilaire. Therefore, the plot that they hatch is now much clearer on investigation. That if they could not get the Prime Minister and Mr. Hilaire to meet them, then get those closest to them. Mark Maraj telephoned Thaddeus Atwan, as is alleged by the minister, to suggest that he should come to Washington to meet Mr. Martinez and his lawyers to ensure that his name would not be attached to the filing. Mr. Thaddeus Atwan did not reply. It showed you the length that Mark, Alan, and others went to try and implicate those individuals. If they had gone, the story would be that they had, as I mentioned before, something to hide. What is ironic is when the minister said quite categorically that Mr. Maraj made it abundantly clear that it is not about Mr. Emmanuel or Mr. Atwan or Mr. Jeffrey D. Boulay. You'll hate yourself. But it is all about Mr. Ernest Hilaire. We need to let Philip know that the time has come for him to step down as Prime Minister. That's what they said. My question to this lady is, when his feet hit the ground, on whose neck will it fall? I suppose it will be on Alan's neck, because the people, bar you and your mendicants and barking dogs, as he called you all. Not only that, he was not talking about you and the young women in your party. Was he not talking about y'all that have one child and continue to have children, which makes many of you dependent on the state, as he said continually as the Prime Minister, that you depend on the government. And then he made the remark, gouvernement, gouvernement. Has he forgotten that in the House? Not long ago, as leader of the opposition, he made it clear again, let the jackasses bray. I was surprised. And that's lately. But this lady who seemed to come out, because I just could not come out and say that St. Lucia belongs to Alan Chastanet. I just couldn't believe that she was serious. When she said equivocally that the real owner of this country is right here among us. And there was Alan, as I mentioned before, in the background, laughing his head off because he realized that she was one of his jackasses or barking dogs. Sometime in the week, oh yes, the United Records of the Poor had another press conference led by Dominic Fede, the poodle, and the one who had the worst beating in our political history, as I mentioned before. When someone coming into politics for the first time made history, and that was in the Roselet constituency. Alan came to the House on the 18th, I think, of June, simply talking rubbish, and seems to have been howling all the things they never did at this government. He seemed to be concentrating on the government's manifesto. Yet in their manifesto, they did simply nothing but to lower VAT to 12.5%. Yet put up the price on 40 products that had no VAT. Now they put on 12.5% on these goods. He seems to be at his lies again in terms of what they did during their term in office, but failed to say that much of St. Lucia was being given to whites in terms of them buying land and being told that the sea close to that land is theirs. Can you believe that? I will take my next break at this juncture. Welcome back to Moving Forward. And I was talking about land being sold to overseas people with beaches close by. And the beaches were also part and parcel of the sale. That is ridiculous. And was that not the same with the canals deal? That the mangroves would be part of the deal? But this government has taken that off mid-shore because rules and regulations forbid this. He said, so really when you're looking at it, sometimes we just see a lot of lies. Here he is declaring, that's Alan, declaring war, ladies and gentlemen, against corruption and crime. But encourage it when he was prime minister. Isn't that a form of war, which is a corrupt practice? There was a prime minister lowering VAT to 12.5%, but adding that amount on 40 odd goods, as I mentioned before, that had no VAT, because it was the goods poor people needed. Yet it is appropriate to use the word WTF. Is this a madman? And ladies, I want to put that word, that WTF in your mind. Alan was so proud that his government was the paymaster for Ojo Labs, to the extent that $40 million a year was spent on the private company, a private company, who went to Grenada and spent $78 million in a project. He thought he was creating jobs. He talked about Cricket World Cup, cricket, to the extent, and showed a clip of the state, he said, of the outside. But what they were doing was digging up. He's not realizing that the road was being dug up to be converted again with asphalt. There he was accusing the government of mismanagement of the country. All we hear is secret lies and propaganda. I therefore said to him in all sincerity, WTF, which means, where are the funds? In my case, but others would say it as something else. Where are the funds of the $7.3 million you paid out for vaccine to an individual who never dealt in drugs before, when there are those who were experts in that field in this country? Dominic keeps asking, where are the missing CIP report? My question is to ask him, where were theirs when they were in office? But here he is, spreading his disinformation and misinformation on this government's borrowing, even to the extent highlighting that the government use of something in the region of $80 million, and continually accusing this government of wasting money. He simply forgot that they were the worst in the history of the government of this country for wasting the country's money without giving any reason on what it was spent. For example, like the desilting of the dam. Experts in that field made clear that it would take 6 to 8 years for that process to be successful if everything went well. But we were given the information that it would take only 1 fiscal year from Alan himself. All of this is recorded, and I have those recordings. They're looking for scandals, tags with a criminal on CIP. This was then the same Prime Minister who introduced us to Jack Lam, who was wanted by Interpol and is now serving a long sentence for money laundering, etc. I watch Alan in the House standing up on points of order like a madman who seemed possessed, and he also seemed to be doing so deliberately so as to deceive those listening. I want to ask him why the Daher Mall, which was valued at $60 million, was sold, where the deed of sale was $13.5 million. Now that he wants to know why he needed to stay. I want to know why he needed to stay at a hotel at £2,000 a night at a hotel in London. Where is that Lockerbie $32 million? Did he go to the United States with it? Because he tried to bring artificial soil to us, or grass, that on a hot day, a real hot day, emits a sort of poisonous smell which can kill someone. In closing tonight, I want to quote a few words where Tagore Williams exhorted the people to revolutionize their lives with new moral modes of conduct, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where words come out from the depths of truth into that heaven of freedom. My Father, let my country awake, those who are prepared to face reality. Few will deny that the nation of St. Lucia is facing, without a shadow of a doubt, a world crisis. It is a moral and spiritual crisis. The crisis has manifested itself in many ways, and these include the unacceptable, and there's no doubt about it, the crime rate, the human carnage on our roads, the violent behavior in the home and community, and the schools, irresponsible parenting of children, wanton disrespect for others, even the authority. There is a persistent tendency to littering, a permissive attitudes toward the desecration of the natural environment, a condoning tolerance of dishonesty, naked bigotry based on political wrongs by many of our citizens, a growing dependency syndrome with respect to the government handouts, a threatening tendency of corrupt practices at all levels of the society. There's also a brazen disregard of legal rules, a silent acceptance of undetected white-collar crime, and blatant deficiencies in the administration of criminal justice. A persistent denial of the existence of the crisis with a casual dismissal of its attendant social consequences. This is a crisis that revolves around the nub of the negative attitudes of people towards frontally addressing the root causes of the crisis. To exist, the crisis there must be a fundamental culture change. There must be so if we want to move forward. This can come about only through a new strategy on human development. People must be seen to be the center, the subject, and the reason for development in this scenario. People must be conceived as a precious resource of the country, who must be accorded their full potential, both individually and collectively, to achieve maximum human fulfillment. It calls for a comprehensive revision of the system of education, which I'm doing right now, and of community development. Notwithstanding its great achievement in the past decades, the education system is defective in many ways. Ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude tonight, I want to put to you that the United Records of the Poor, once again, is out there trying their best to spread their vilification and nullification of our Prime Minister in terms of the halls of justice. We must stand fast and literally blow them away with their crap. These individuals seem to think that they are so lost that it is now any port for a storm. Here they are, with their propaganda accusing him of spreading lies about the cost of the halls of justice. I say quite categorically to you, brothers and sisters, this is a Prime Minister who has an abundance of integrity and who comes from a humble beginning. A mother who was a teacher, a father who was a policeman. And they were damn good at what they did. And a brother named Bert, who owned his own bakery, supplying bread and cakes, etc., to the nation, and who was another hard worker in spreading, So therefore, the crap they're spreading are lies. I want to simply ask them, who are the generators of the lies and the perpetrators of the dishonesty in this country? The worst alleged liars in this country are a bunch headed by their leader, then their PR, followed by their deputy leaders and first and second deputy leader. I say to you, brothers and sisters, we may be facing an election in 1.5 years, and we must not be hoodwinked by an opposition that under the heavy scrutiny we will find alleged corruption at the highest level. So, brothers and sisters, let not your heart be troubled. Let us make sure that at the next election we wipe them out completely with 17 seats. That is what they are afraid of. Finally, I want to say that it does not matter how much the halls of justice cost. We need it, and it will be ours, the country's, and not some foreign entity who was sold land or given land in exchange the amount of 99 acres at $1, or as the Prime Minister said, 99 cents an acre. An acre. An acre, ladies and gentlemen, and I want to point that out, amounts to 43,000 square foot. That is what makes an acre. And even though that land was sold at $10, just think of it, a square foot. Think of how much money was simply given away to T.O.R. King, and our CIP monies is now lost in a China bank. I did not say so. It was the leader of the opposition that clarified that. And finally tonight I want to say to our government, the square that we have in Castries, that we have, and it's in the middle of our city, must now be used as a manner when tourists come, they will know something of the people that made us who we are. Therefore, there should be some information of all St. Lucians icons that is carved, their heads carved of them, posted at different points on the square, with something written about them. Last week, I spoke about Hunter J. Francois. How many children know about that icon? Well, they must, and it will be a tribute to the good work that these icons have done while on this earth and in this country. Well, tonight I hope I have whet the appetite for months ahead. What I want is for you to never forget that we were born black and should be proud of that. Brothers and sisters, let us come together and work hard under the Prime Ministership of Philip Joseph Pierre to make St. Lucia great again. St. Lucia needs him, and not anyone who was fed with a golden spoon and tell us in no uncertain term that he's a product of Canada. Let us hurry up to process him to return to the country he's a product of. God bless you all tonight. Until we meet again next week, go in peace to serve the one Most High. I bid you a pleasant good night and goodbye and good night.